Are you feeling lost and disconnected? Well, hey, listen up. In this video, I'm going to share a whole slew of signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. But let's dive into the different signs that I have experienced along the way, and I want to share with you so that you know you're going through a spiritual awakening. You may start to find that some of your friends, family that are no longer in alignment with you, and so your friend base and the people you associate may completely change. And this must mean you're also in a spiritual awakening. Look, it just happens as we start to evolve and we start to get rid of those traumas. Those that are still in their traumas are more likely, well, they're staying there. And so you're not going to be able to relate to them in quite the same way. And so initially you guys are going to try to stay and they're going to get upset with you, or eventually you're just going to fall out of alignment with them and they're just going to drop away. And that is healthy and normal. So if you're starting to see your friends and who you associate with change, you're probably in a spiritual awakening. You are also in a spiritual awakening when you are starting to crave solitude and time with your own voice. And this is really important because, all this external stimulus out there is not doing any good. It's kind of weighing you down. It feels heavy. And what you're really calling for is your internal knowing and some peace so that you can really hear and start to identify with what's going on inside of you. You're starting to realize that this world is noisy. It's noisy for a reason. It's noisy so that you're not connected to all these things that are going on. It's half the reason you're here. Because, on the other side, we're all connected and we know every possibility. And so if you know every possibility, it means that takes away your free will to discover and work things out. And so this place is very noisy, very dense. And what you're finding is that you're wanting that solitude so that you can start to connect to your higher self and start to get this wisdom and that connection that you're craving so badly. Are you drawn to nature and beautiful things? A lot of times with all the hustle and bustle of today's society, things can get very noisy, and that need for simplicity and to get back to who we really are in the environment is so critical. So do you find yourself needing to ground and be near things that are more natural, have an easier energy about them? When this starts to happen, we start to really kind of ground and connect to ourselves, and natural beauty makes us feel more at ease with our environment. So if you're feeling called to sit within nature or be attracted to more simple ways of doing things, you're probably in a spiritual awakening. If you are, believe it or not, if your movies and the sounds of music that you listen to dramatically change. So let me tell you what this one is. I can give you my experience and where I really got off on action stories and, believe it or not, war stories, which was allowing me to relive all the negativity that I had gone through. And I listened to dark, heavy music, and it just seemed like everything in the world was there to hold a particular mindset of survival and scarcity. And as I went through my awakening, well, first, I don't even watch TV anymore, which is a huge thing. But then the music that I decided to listen to was much more spiritual, uplifting. So the energy of what I was consuming dramatically changed. And you will see that as well. You will want to surround yourself with higher and higher energy and thought patterns as your spiritual awakening progresses. Heavy and dark and bleak, and everything seems kind of intolerable. Well, first thing, stop watching the news. It's not relevant anyways. But if you're feeling like this is too much, then you're probably in a spiritual awakening. So guys, what it is you're in really dense energy, but you're now starting to become aware of of that. And as your vibration rises, this dense energy, like what we're seeing on the screen right here, which is just hilarious, just becomes too much. It's all fake anyways. And we're not talking about the guy. It's just that all of this is here to distract you, and you know it. So if this is getting rather heavy and you feel like the world is kind of bleak and intolerable, and you know there's stuff better out there, you're in a spiritual awakening. Interest in the non-physical realities of this world, probably in a spiritual reality. Hey, so with this one is always kind of fascinating when you start to become aware of things that are beyond the tangible. So like your soul, the matter of existence, what's going on inside your body, how does everything all relate? When you start to get really curious on that, and it becomes, your non-physical becomes very real to you, and you start to see things with a wider perspective, then you're probably in a spiritual awakening. Having a spiritual awakening, if you can start to dive into and understand the emotions of others. This is a pretty profound one, when we talk about, clairsensory type of empath type of things. But it's a real thing. I mean, everybody has these abilities, but now you're becoming awakened to them, and you start to sense the inner motives of people. And, where maybe before you would trust somebody and it didn't quite go the way that you thought it would, now things are a little bit different, where you kind of have a sense of when things are in your best interest and when they're not, or more importantly, what's that other person's intentions and whether that you're actually in alignment. Because we're all connected, and now you're starting to sense that, and you're starting to sense their inner vibrations and whether they align with you. A spiritual awakening, if you all of a sudden have developed an insatiable need for knowledge, or knowing. Actually, knowing is a better way. And so what I mean by this is that, the veil has been lifted. You're now living in thin space, and you want to become more intimate with it. And so now you're going to be feeling the need to research different types of spiritual practices, different ways of uplifting your vibration, different ways of being authentic, different ways of healing. Because nobody's journey is exactly the same. There are many different ways to get there. But in your awakening, you now have been kind of supercharged to pull in as much knowing and understanding of this process. Heck, that's why you're here right now, is because you're really trying to make sense of this. And so that knowing, like understanding chakra systems and human design and breathing techniques and different gurus and different saints are all part of your journey to make this the most authentic process and experience that you can. So you're in a spiritual journey or a spiritual awakening. If you have this, well, heck, if you're here, then you are looking for more knowledge to understand what all of this really is. You may be in a spiritual awakening is this need to connect to nature. So, if you're living in a city, it may be that you're going to want to get out into the trees. You may want to go walk in a park. I'm kind of set up where I'm kind of somewhat in the country, as much as you can be in this type of environment that I'm in. But yeah, just this really need to get out, take your shoes off, and connect to that inner beauty around you is one of those things that you're going to find is probably a good indication that you are in a spiritual awakening. Going through a spiritual awakening, if you're feeling slightly off when it comes to religion. And so this was always an interesting one for me. Those that really know me know that I'm highly religious, and grew up Catholic, and then later went to study many different religions along the way. And my travel and such allowed me to do that. And I'm married to a priest, so it's a thing. But along that way, a lot of times there are things that just doesn't feel right. And that is the difference where I have a problem with religion and other people do, where it is meant to more control you than to uplift you. And there's nothing wrong with religion. That it really does provide that foundation, and that's why I'm still in it. But when you're in that awakening, you also start to realize that there's more. There's more than what that religion could actually hold for you. And so it's not a diminishing, it is a questioning of things. Like, for instance, I was sitting in Pentecost and realizing some of the scriptures and realizing in my awakening that there was more represented in that scripture than what was being conveyed to the average person. So it's beautiful. And you'll find that you're in a spiritual awakening if you're starting to question your religious beliefs, but not from a negative point of view, but from an authentic, uplifting point of view. Important one. You may be going through in a spiritual awakening if your sleep patterns have changed. So you'll start to notice that you'll be tired a lot more often, or in different times than you're normally used to. Look at the bags under my eyes. And so you'll find that, a siesta may be more appropriate, and that you may be waking up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's normal. What's happening is, a lot happens in that unconscious mind. And that's really comes online at night, depending on all your spiritual beliefs. And that's a good thing. Like, some of my highest vibration times happens at 2:20 in the morning, and that's okay. But then consequently, in the day-to-day spaces, it takes so much energy to go through this 3D space that naps are become a real thing, and that's okay. So if you're feeling tired at strange times in the day, or more awake and energetic in nighttime hours, chances are you're going through a spiritual awakening. An uncontrollable need to share positive news and outlook. Chances are you're in a spiritual awakening. Look, the big thing here is that as we come out of the programming that is holding us back, and holding us in fear, and it's making us doubt ourselves, we realize that there's just so much more here, and from a positive sense. And so that feeling or that need to share, like what we're doing right here, that positive outcome, positive message, so that everybody can be on that higher vibration, is a great indication that you're on a spiritual awakening. Okay, another thing that might be if you're having a spiritual awakening is you might have a need for solitude. This is a real thing where as you go through your awakening, you're going to become sensitive to other people, to a point that maybe you're going to want to be inside your own energy and own power. Everything becomes a distraction, or even gets a little noisy. So a lot of us end up wanting to be alone, or more have a solitude existence, while we ground and get stable again. So if you're needing time alone or in solitude, you might be going through a spiritual awakening. And meaningless conversation kind of annoy you? Yeah, if that's the case, you're probably in a spiritual awakening. And so what's going on here, guys, at least from what I have seen, is that we just start to realize how much programming is going on and how mindless we have been in our experiences. And that when we want to have conversation, when we want to exchange with people, we want it to be more meaningful. And we want depth and insight. And so as we crave more connection and crave more knowledge and understanding, we want our conversations to be more vibrant, more energy. We don't want to just kind of drone on and on about the football game or how we had our nails done. We want to know, like, how do we feel, and truly get vulnerable and authentic in relationships with others. So if you are feeling that need for more depth in your relationships, you are definitely going into a spiritual awakening. Following every low, there are these high points of profound emotional wisdom. And so I'm not talking about, for my psychologist, a manic, euphoric type of cycle or something like that. No, this is kind of an inner knowing, like a spiral that seems to happen, where it's not about the intensity of the low and the intensity of the high as much as these knowings. You're shifting into like a shadow work where there's a lot of good creation going, but it's uncomfortable. And that's followed by these euphoric bliss states of kind of inner knowing. So it's not just that your emotions are up, but your whole awareness also increases as you celebrate these victories. And they happen faster and faster and faster as your vibration goes up. So if you're getting highs and lows, not just in your head, but also in your heart space, then you're most likely in a spiritual awakening. But all, if you are wondering about the reality of God, or if there is a God, or are we all God, and you are diving into seeing that we're all related, we're all connected, and there is something so vast and so much beyond anything that we could fathom, then you are probably on a spiritual awakening. And what I mean by this, guys, if the concept of God, from what maybe we were been taught in our religions or by our parents, has expanded to understand that, we're all connected and there's this oneness. And as we peel back those layers of reality or those layers of perception, we're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What is at the end of next? Well, that's probably that you're on a spiritual awakening. As you leave that non-duality and come into oneness with all things. So you're probably on a spiritual awakening. You are finding yourself challenging of the meaning of existence. And you start to look at things and question, why are we here? What is your purpose in life? What is this all about? And chances are you are in an awakening. Look, that was probably one of the biggest pivotal points, is that piece that philosophers, and thinkers have been using for years, is why are we here? And so in my awakening, when I started to really dive into that, that's when things kind of went, I started to exercise different cognition that I didn't even know I had. And then as we kind of peel back the onion on why we are here and who we really are, things become more and more profound. And consequently, they also become more and more pretty, as our perspectives expand and we realize that there is so much more going on. And really, the whole point of this is to determine the meaning of our existence. So if you're questioning that, you are definitely on a spiritual way. More exciting than thrill and excitement. So when you hit that transition where everything is loud and noisy and you want to find some quiet so that you can be alone with your thoughts, chances are you're in a spiritual awakening. It's replacing external goals or material desires. So this is always a good one in a spiritual awakening. As we have been so programmed to think that we need like money. We've talked a little bit about manifesting money here on this channel. And then we start to realize that our belief system in how much wealth we can actually generate isn't actually going to serve our highest purpose. And when we start to dive inward and say, okay, can I get more clairvoyance? Can I become a better person? Can I establish boundaries? When those goals take the forefront of here that everything mystically changes for you. And that's when you know you're in a spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening, or a sign that there's a spiritual awakening, is that everything starts to look beautiful. And it's not like early on when I was in my 3D existence, all the images would look flat. Like, yeah, there's 3 dimensions. It had dimensions, but it kind of lacked color. It lacked, again, it's kind of hard to describe, but dimensionality. And, as you go through your awakening, you just start to see everything as beautiful and unique. Colors seem to become more vibrant. Sounds become more powerful. Taste, oh my gosh, taste. Things taste either more, they just taste more. Like, I won't say that they're good or bad, you just taste more of them. And along with that is this sense of setting up boundaries and defining what is authentically you, as far as, what flavors you're going to eat. Your diet will change based on the flavors as well. So your senses will become richer, and you'll kind of start to celebrate those at a certain point, but you'll also find how it will guide and change the way you're going to go through life. So if you're seeing things as more beautiful, more vibrant, just more, you're in a spiritual awakening.
Questioning life after death. Or more importantly, is there even death at all? Well, I mean, that in itself isn't really a spiritual awakening. But when you start to dive into the larger meanings of it, the understanding of your soul, or realizing that this reality is only an extension of what you are, then you may be in an awakening. Because, yes, when you're no longer fearing your life or the end of your life, because you realize that it's not the end of your life, that is just an extension, and that you are a soul in a human experience, then things change radically for you. And so I would just invite you, to really dive into, that meaning of your life, and realizing that it's so much more than what we can perceive it at this time. So if you're fascinated by that topic lately, then you are in a spiritual awakening.
This one is, do you see coincidences that appear to have deeper meaning? So I think one of the big things about when your perception expands is that your communication with the universe changes. And I talk a little bit about it in a couple of videos that I'll leave a link in here for. But yes, now that language changes. Well, the universe doesn't communicate in words, communicates in actions. It's constantly trying to get your attention, especially when they want you to go down a certain path that's in your best interest, or something that you have agreed to before you came here. So you may start to see numerology. So maybe some 111 or 333. It may be that you start to think about somebody and then they text you. Or, your favorite song is playing. This has happened to me. The song kept on playing over and over and over and over. And then it was just telling me that's something I needed to do. So when you start to see those occurrences start to happen with deeper meaning, you're probably on a spiritual awakening.
Between all things, is sacred geometry becoming a thing? Or are you just seeing the repeating pattern of divinity? Well, chances are that you are in a spiritual awakening. Yeah, when this happens, you really start to realize that this is all a pattern and a construct. And this was created by an intelligence. And as your perception grows and you're able to look outside of the construct that you've been sold, you start to realize that all of this is structured for you, with you, and becomes quite a beautiful thing. So if you're seeing these structures, or you're seeing similarities between trees and water deltas, and how your lungs work, and how things interrelate to each other, yeah, chances are you are in a spiritual awakening.
Okay, and for that bonus sign, that you are in a spiritual awakening is that you are here right now, and you are looking and asking. If you've gotten to the end of these 22 and you've been able to identify with most of them, yes, you're on a spiritual awakening, but more importantly, it's your own discernment, your own intuition that has brought you here, that has guided you here, and is telling you that you're on that path of enlightenment. So I would encourage you to enjoy this. Don't worry about right or wrong as much as the truth of being authentic to who you are, because that's really what it is, that you are special. This is unique, and you've asked for this. And yes, it can be a little challenging, but you're not alone here. Everything that is happening, these shifts in perception are wonderful, and they're going to help you become who you are fully supposed to be and everything that you're supposed to experience. So I hope that you're enjoying this. If you think that there is another sign to your awakening that I didn't list, leave it in the comments down below so that everybody that comes through can see the different perceptions or the different realities that happen in your spiritual awakening. Much love.